Hello everyone and welcome to our September DIY pot kit tutorial. Thank you so much if you're here and you've ordered a kit and you're watching and about to pot up your plant. Thank you also for joining me if you're just here to have a look and have a watch and see what we do at Hello Petal. It's lovely to have you. This month things are a little bit different, so I decided to do a bit of a houseplant sort of collection of pot kits. As we move into autumn, and then also we're focusing on keeping your garden beautiful throughout the cooler months. So for example, if your kitchen overlooks your garden and you can see your garden table from where you spend a lot of your time, I think it's nice not to sort of give up and just think, okay, well it's autumn and winter now, we're not spending time outdoors entertaining, so it doesn't matter. But actually what is nice is to be able to look outside and see things that are evergreens and that still flourish beautifully during the cooler months and still look beautiful and still make your garden look lovely. So that's where we've kind of focused for September. So houseplants, but then also still keeping your garden beautiful. We don't need to give up on it. Let's style it nicely and then it will see us through the winter, autumn, winter. So let's begin. So we're going to begin with a houseplant in our pot collection. Now this is probably one of my favourites. It is called the Little Fig Tree Kit on our website. So yes, it's an indoor fig, fruiting, so you can see hopefully some gorgeous little figs growing here. You can keep it indoors as it gets colder, and it's just precious, a precious little tree. Fills my heart with joy. I love it and I hope you do too. So I will show you how to pot it up and then give you some tips on how to look after it. So as always in your kit you will receive your gravel, your compost and your moss, and also your pot and your plant. So for the fig we've chosen one of our brand new Berg's Potter pots, which is this beautiful sort of layered terracotta, comes with its matching saucer. Really gorgeous, full of texture, and just works so beautifully with this sort of rustic Mediterranean houseplant. So to begin with, we're going to add in our gravel. Add the gravel in once the pot is on the saucer, because obviously there's a drainage hole up at the bottom. So you don't need loads, just probably like a centimetre and a half. Then we're going to add in our fig tree. Give your fig a really good water when you receive it. Don't leave it in the box. Pop it straight in a clean sink with some water, or give it a good drink outside and then bring it back in so that it's nice and hydrated before you pot up. So I've added in the gravel. I've just taken the fig tree straight out the pot, put it in, it fits perfectly. Now, if you feel you need some compost around the sides, then definitely go ahead and add some in. You won't need much because it's a pretty perfect fit in this 16 centimetre pot. So just add it in, trying to make sure that you've got no sort of air pockets down the sides. In your kit you are likely to have probably a lot more compost than you need, so yeah, just go with what you think it needs to kind of make sure it's nice and sort of compact in its pot. So there we go. At this point, if you want to, you can give it another little drink before we put the moss on. Completely up to you, depending on how warm the weather is and how sort of hydrated your pot is, your plant is, sorry, beforehand. So in your kit as well, you have your moss. So as always, two different types. You've got your bun moss, which is the sort of more compact, almost sort of grass looking, lawn looking moss, and then your sphagnum moss, which is a slightly more textured, more open moss. So we're just popping the moss around the base of the tree. So the moss has two functions. The first function is practical in that it stops the water evaporating quite so quickly. So you're more likely to keep your plant well watered and not dry out. But secondly, aesthetically, it finishes the plant off really nicely, going in with the sphagnum now just to fill in the gaps. finishes the pot off really nicely, makes it look complete, and just adds another sort of texture and dimension to your potted plant. So there we have it, it's all potted up. It doesn't take long, but it's so enjoyable, especially when it's something that's got fruit on it and you can see the figs. They're just gorgeous. But so, giving you some tips on how to look after it. So figs can be kept outdoors during the summer, but in the autumn you bring them in, keep them indoors. They don't like to be sat in water, so they don't like to be overwatered at all. So I would be suggesting to water your fig every 10 days. Wait until the top sort of inch of soil has dried out, then re-water, and give it a good drench, a really careful sort of drench. Don't just sort of really overwater and then leave it, because it won't actually absorb all of that liquid. I would suggest giving it a really careful water, making sure it's really hydrated, making sure it's damp, and then leave it for 10 days to 2 weeks sometimes, if it's not too hot outside, or if it's we're in winter and your fig is resting. I would then say you can feed it just before we go into winter, just to see it through. Just a normal plant fertilizer or a feed, or a seaweed feed is fine, or a tomato plant feed is great too. So something like that, just to see it through, give it those extra nutrients before the winter. And you could also, it would benefit from some misting as well. If you've got a mister, like a sort of spritz gun, give it a mist every now and then, as much as possible really, if you have one nearby. And just keep an eye on it. Don't overwater it. That's the sort of the worst thing to do for it, because it's likely not to survive. Sort of treat it a bit mean, and I hope you really enjoy your little fig tree. So the next pot kit for September is our much loved, one of our best sellers, the Little Olive Tree Kit. This month in September we've got a new pot to put it in. We've kept the rose terracotta pot as well, because you all love it so much and it does look so beautiful, but we've also brought in a new pot which is the same but in this gorgeous sort of milky white glaze. They call it mineral white, and it really is truly lovely. Comes in its matching saucer with all that lovely castle detail that we have on the other pots in the rose terracotta. Both are options on the website, so you can order either, but we could not bring it back because it's just so adorable and you will love it so much. And it's exciting now that as we move away from summer and into autumn, that we can start bringing certain plants that grow so well in the garden in summer into the house, treat them slightly differently, but how lovely to be able to have an olive indoors. So I'll put it up for you and show you what to do, and then I'll go through tips on how to look after it. So adding in your gravel. So this creates the drainage, stops the roots from sitting in too much water, which causes root rot, and something that they really don't like. So once you've added your gravel in, give your tree a good drink, and then gently take it out of its pot and pop it straight into your pot there. And you'll see it might need a little bit of compost around the sides. So again, adding some of that in, making sure it's nice and compact. You won't need very much at all. Just making sure there's no air pockets in the soil. So compacting that nicely. And then, as I said before, in the August pot kits when we did the olives, I like an olive in its pot without the moss. Personally, I don't know why, I just find it a really nice contrast between the sage green of the olive leaves and the sort of the dark soil. But saying that, obviously in your pocket you will have moss, so go ahead should you wish to. So with this one, you might need to take a little bit of the root system off the moss, off the bun moss. So just purely doing that, nice and easy, and then sitting that around. Just adds a really lovely texture to your pocket. And then going in with some sphagnum moss, so that you've got two different mosses around the base. And there you go, there you have it, all potted up. Gorgeous little olive tree. So in terms of caring for your olive, you can keep it outside actually if you want to, probably until, I would say, until it hits around the kind of 12-15 degree mark outside. Once it does start to get cooler, bring it in, but don't bring it indoors from a really cool day to a centrally heated house, because it will go into shock and then it will die. It will lose all its leaves and then it will die. You almost need to bring it in gradually. So that's if you want to keep it outside for a short while before we really get into autumn. If you want to receive your kit, pot it up and then keep it indoors straight away, probably what I would actually recommend, so that then you're not taking it into a different atmosphere that then will shock it when it comes back in. So I would say keep it indoors, put it in a place where it's going to get as much sunlight as possible, because they do still love a lot of light. And then the crucial sort of step for looking after your little olive is the watering. So it's really easy to overwater because you so desperately obviously want it to survive and you think that's doing the right thing. I've made that mistake before, and actually with olive, they like to be drenched and have a really good water, and then leave them alone. Let the soil dry out. Again, same with the fig, an inch. Put your finger in the soil, check that it's dry. When it's dry, you water it again, and you're probably looking at once a week, maybe 10 days you water it. Okay, so it's not a little and often plant at all. It's not like some other house plants, one of which will go the angel vine, which is definitely more of a house plant where it likes to be kept damp all the time. This is one where it really doesn't like sitting in a lot of water, hates having its roots wet. So yeah, treat it keen, treat it mean, keep it keen. So give it a good drink, let it dry out, a week later, 10 days later, give it another good drenching. It will rest in the winter, so it doesn't need too much care and attention. And then hopefully in the spring and the summer, you'll be able to move it outside and enjoy it in the outdoors. So there you have it, the white glazed pot olive tree, which we also have in the rose terracotta as well. And I hope you enjoy it. So we're now going to move on to our next indoor pot kit, which is our glazed green pot herb planter. This is another one of our new pots this month. It comes in this gorgeous sort of foresty emerald green glazed pot. It's just stunning, really gorgeous, really kind of sort of rustic and moody. Looks beautiful no matter what you put in it. So yes, one of my favourites again. And I just thought, we all love having herbs in our kitchens. We all love cooking with herbs, and it's such a nice thing to have, accessible, but also, not just stuck on the windowsill, but just put in something really beautiful, that's almost like a centerpiece. You can have it on your island or by your cooker, or on your kitchen table. Yeah, just a really lovely thing to have in the kitchen. So with this herb planter, we have oregano, rosemary and thyme. So they smell beautiful, really, really gorgeous textures, and they are all going in here. So we will start with the gravel, sorry. So just a small amount of gravel, don't smooth them out. Ooh, sorry. Just layering in at the bottom, again, just so that their roots don't sit in water, which they will hate. Yeah, we'll go on to watering in a minute, but they definitely hate having their roots sitting in cold, wet water. So the first one is the oregano. So give them all a really good water. These have had a good drink. And pop it in. So you're planting your plants, the 3 plants, in a sort of a triangle shape. Then in with your rosemary. You can tease so that they have a good start. If you tease the root system a little bit, can you see? So that the roots are a bit looser. So that then goes in. It's definitely a kind of, almost a squeeze, but because we want it to look full, we want to use the bigger plants. And then we're going in with the thyme. Again, after a nice drink. Tease the roots down a bit as well. You might find your thyme, the roots always very compact. So just a little break. They seem to just access the water a bit better. And then squeeze that in. They do all fit, as you can see, but they're just on the larger size so that it's impactful straight away. And then you'll obviously then have 3 gaps where you need to add your soil. So in those 3 sections, you fill the gaps with soil, compress it down. They smell so good. Compress that down so that there's no air at all. Last side. Okay, so those are all in, and now we add in the moss. So take your bun moss, and the moss basically goes in those 3 sections that we've just added the soil. I'm going to take some of the root system off so that it sits a little bit more flush to the pot. And then add some sphagnum moss. I'll do this one so you can see. So taking off the root system, which is the sort of the browner side. Placing that there again, so that it sort of sits flush with the pot. And then adding in the sphagnum moss for extra texture. Allow some to hang down. And then the last side. And there you have it. So looking after your planter, your herb planter, herbs don't like to sit in cold, sort of wet pots. They don't like having their roots in water. So I would suggest watering let's say every 5 days in a warm house. If you feel the oregano will be the one to droop first. If you feel that that's drooping, maybe water beside the oregano is, because the thyme, maybe because it's a bit more woody in nature, doesn't need as much water. So maybe give the oregano a nice drink, but leave the other side and just see how you go. Get your fingers in there and feel the soil, and if it feels dry, give it a nice drink, but don't overwater so that the water pools at the bottom of the pot, because that's what will kill them. I would say with herbs, a little bit, but more regularly. So yeah, 3-5 days maybe, 5 days probably more is probably better at the moment. But don't overwater. Don't sort of panic and sort of pour a whole jog's worth of water in, because that will literally just sit in the bottom, because there's no drainage, which is why we have the gravel. It will sit in the middle here of the pot, and the herbs will hate it. So just little and often with herbs, put them somewhere where they get some nice sunlight, and trying to think anything else. I think that's it. Well, they're quite easy to look after, but yeah, little and often in terms of watering. And I hope you enjoy your herb plant kit. So this one is the last in the houseplants for our September pockets, and it's a gorgeous textural houseplant. Works beautifully in sort of rustic interiors. I love it, it's gorgeous, and it's the Maidenhair vine. So easy to look after, and a really good one for the home. So in your kit you will, as always, have your gravel, your compost and your moss, and obviously your plant and your terracotta pot. So this one is a really cute 12cm Berg Potter terracotta pot. So it's one of our smaller ones. So yeah, really easy to put anywhere in the home. Put it on a shelf in the kitchen and let it sort of drape down, or pop it on a bookshelf in, you know, somewhere else in your home, and it goes anywhere, or in the bathroom. It looks beautiful as well. A really versatile houseplant, I think. So adding in your gravel in the bottom of the pot. Again, just a little bit, just to kind of cover the bottom of the pot so that its roots don't sit in any water. Give your Maidenhair vine a nice drink when you receive it. Don't leave it in the box. Give it a good drink straight away. I thought, oh, it's a spider. Is it a spider? No, it's not a spider. Sorry, freak out. Add your Maidenhair vine to the pot and you'll find it fits perfectly. You don't need any soil. I will put compost in your kits just in case. You won't need it, but it's there, you know, use it for something else. But yeah, I will put it in the kit just in case. So add it in. You will probably also find that you don't have much space for moss. But again, it will be in your kit and you can use it if you want to, or use it on something else that you have potted up. But there'll just be a little bit in there. And again, this might be a case of you just really separate it up and just pop it in any gaps that you see. It just adds a bit of depth, a bit more texture if it needs it. And just add it into the gaps. So that's the bun moss, and then we'll just pop a little bit of the sphagnum moss in. But as you can see, it just drapes so beautifully, and it really does look gorgeously rustic. I love it, and it really works so beautifully with interiors. So that is it. In terms of looking after your Maidenhair vine, it's a houseplant that likes to be kept damp. So it's not the same as our kind of more Mediterranean plants like the fig and the olive and the lemon, where they like to be drenched and then left alone for a while to dry out. This is one that likes to be kept damp but not soaking wet. So again, with all plants, I suppose, it doesn't like to be sat in water. It doesn't like its roots to be sat in cold, wet water. Cold water. So yeah, keep it damp, but not overwatered, and definitely not dry. So just keep an eye on it, keep an eye on the soil, and yeah, just keep it nice and well watered. So that draws us to the end of our houseplant pot kits for September. We've obviously had the herb planter, the little olive tree, the Maidenhair vine, and the fig tree, all of which can be kept indoors. And now we'll move on to two of our August pot kits that we feel can transition into autumn and winter perfectly, and you've loved them so much that we could not bring them back. So they are the mini myrtle trio, which you get 3 pots, 3 plants. They are evergreen, so they work beautifully outside throughout the entire autumn, winter, throughout the cold season. You can look out your window and your table will be styled beautifully with that trio of pots. They won't die, they stay green, and they look stunning. Then also we've got your little lemon trees, which just you loved so much, and they sold out so quickly, so we made sure we had lots more this month, because again, they can stay outside at the moment. They'll still be doing quite well in this temperature, but as soon as you kind of start to get a bit cooler, heading towards the kind of 15 degrees, 10 degrees, obviously before the frost. You bring them in and they transition into being really good houseplants. So I go through the tips on how to look after lemon trees in the video, in the tutorial that I'm going to add now, but in a nutshell, with lemon, water it, let it dry out in the top inch of soil. So you're looking at watering probably every 10 days, really good drench, then leave it. They love humidity, so give them a really good spritz with a spritz gun and keep them somewhere humid, so probably a kitchen or a bathroom is best, and where they're going to get some good sunlight. So that's the lemon tree. They're a lovely plant to have indoors. They really are one of those plants, a bit like the fig, that brings so much joy seeing their little fruits. And then again with the mini myrtle, just having something outside that styles your garden throughout the cold season, I think is so important. So they're coming up next, and I hope you enjoy. So next in our trio of kits is the mini myrtle trio. Now, last month in July, for our July pot kits, we had a tall myrtle and a mini myrtle, a little myrtle, and you loved them. So I thought this month we'll do something a little bit different, but of the similar kind of vibe, and go for an even smaller myrtle topiary tree, but one that we can cluster into a trio so that you have 3 in your kit, perfect and ready for a tablescape or for styling your garden. So these are outdoor kits, these ones, and in your kit you will receive 3 of these just the cutest little myrtle trees, as well as your beautifully ribbed Berg's Potter rosé terracotta pots and saucers, and all your moss and your gravel and your compost. So if I show you how to pot these up, so in the base of your pot you need your gravel, so these are in quite small pots. I think they're about 10 centimetres. So you will need added compost into your pot. So after putting your gravel in, I would then go in with a sort of a scoopful. Let's condense that down. I might need a bit less actually. Oh no, maybe a tiny bit less of compost into each one. And then take them out of their pots after giving them a nice drink. I think that's okay, we'll see. That one might need some of the compost taking out. And as you'll see, they're just so gorgeous. They're not as sort of structured in shape as the July myrtles were. They're a different variety of myrtle than the previous ones. So they're a little bit more rustic and a little bit more natural in their shape, which I love. You can prune them, of course, to keep them really compact, or you can just let them go and they'll keep their sort of tree-like structure if you take off the leaves from the base, but they will become a little bit more wild. It's probably important to say that they won't all look exactly the same. When they arrived to us, they're all slightly different. Some of them have got a longer sort of trunk. Some of them are a bit sort of wider in their shape. Some of them have leaves lower down their trunk, so they look more of a kind of sort of a base tree rather than a taller tree. Obviously, granted, they are tiny. But yeah, they are all different, and I think that's what's lovely about them. So in your trio, in your kit, they might not look perfectly the same, but I think that that's one of part of their beauty. They're just really different, unusual, and yeah, they work beautifully on a table. So just to carry on potting up, they need more compost around the edges, making sure you're getting it as as per the other kits, all the way in so that there's no air pockets. Just do it by just sort of pushing it down. So that might take a bit of time, but it's worth it just to make sure that you don't have those sort of air pockets. And when you're working out how much soil to put in at the base, have a think about moss and how you want your moss to look, whether you want it to look more sort of raised, so you almost see over the rim of the pot, or whether you want it to be kind of flush, in which case you need less compost at the base of your plants. So with myrtle, they're a Mediterranean plant, but they do like a decent watering. You'll find with them that if they are dry and thirsty, they will show you by just a bit of a kind of leaf drop, or not drop, sort of their leaves will kind of go, they'll look tired. So, but the beauty of them is that they spring back so quickly after giving them a good drink. So just keep an eye on them. In hot weather, you might find that they need probably every other day maybe watering in hot weather. But just see how you go. They're quite a hard plant to kill, I think. So as long as you keep them nicely watered, so they don't go kind of floppy or crispy, you should be good. Okay, so again, much like I said with the olive, I do quite like how they look with just their soil and the terracotta and the sort of the fresh green of their leaves. So I like how they look right now, but again, whatever you fancy, your moss will be in your kit. So if you want to add your moss, go ahead, because it is gorgeous. But I just find, I don't know why, but I feel like you can see more of the kind of more of the tree structure, more of the trunk, I guess, when you don't have moss. But then saying that, now I've put it on, I do really like it. So it's completely whatever you like best. And as with all the other pot kits, I'm sorry, I'm probably boring you with saying this all the time, make sure you water the soil and not the moss. So make sure that water is getting into the soil of the plant, therefore getting to the roots, rather than not reaching down far enough, because what you might find is the moss soaks it all up and then it doesn't get to where it's needed. You'll have beautifully green moss though, but maybe your plant might die. So adding the last of the moss to these kits. In terms of pruning, you prune in spring, so prune when the new growth starts. So you'll find when you receive the kits that you'll see that there's lots of new growth already. So that will continue throughout the summer. It will then slow over winter, and that's where you can add in sort of maybe a bit of a feed, or you can mulch them if you want to. But then prune in spring. So as soon as you see that new growth, maybe in March or April, give them a prune if you want to. You don't have to. If you want them to go really beautifully wild and not have any specific shape, then don't prune. If you want to keep that kind of compact shape, prune in spring. So there you have it. It is the mini myrtle topiary tree kit. Okay, so we're now moving on to our little lemon tree pot kit tutorial section. Now these, to be honest, blow my mind. I just can't get over how gorgeous they are and how you have a plant so little with these gorgeous fruits. I just love them so much. Anyway, so when they arrive to you, they will be green. because they are lovely and fresh. But they will obviously eventually turn yellow with some really good sunlight and some good drinking. So we're going to put this up again in our gorgeous Copenhagen rose terracotta pots. We've gone for again a slightly bigger pot for it so that its root system has a good chance to sort of develop. So add in your gravel first, a decent amount so that they don't sit in moisture. So I've got probably an inch worth of gravel in there. And then after a nice water, gosh, got those lovely roots, add in your lemon tree. Now you'll see that it needs extra compost around it. So we'll go in with that. You'll have that obviously in your kit. So let's add the compost in. Just around the edges, not necessarily on top, just more down the sides, sort of breaking the air pockets. Okay, and then firmly pressing down to make sure there's no air. And again, I've left a decent amount, probably sort of just under an inch of space between the soil on my plant and the rim of my pot, purely to add some moss in just to kind of finish it off, which again obviously in your kit. So I'll add that in and then I'll talk you through some sort of lemon tree pointers. So going with the bun moss, which is the more vibrant green moss here, and then finishing with the sphagnum moss in the gaps. So with lemon trees, you can have them indoors and outdoors, which is obviously a winner in my book. In terms of having them outdoors, excuse me, they need obviously lots of sunlight. They are plants that like a humid condition. So if you're watering them, maybe give them a kind of a mist. If your hose pipe does that, give them a mist, or you can use one of those sort of hairdresser kind of misters, as you would with your hydrangeas. Give them really good water regularly. So I would say every 2 days if it's hot. But go by how the plant's looking. So on this plant you can see it's got new shoots, new growth, so it's obviously really happy. I've kept them really well watered and in the sun. So yeah, sun and water really for a lemon tree will keep it happy. And some regular misting as well, because they like that sort of humidity. In terms of bringing them indoors, so you'd have your lemon plant now outside in the garden. You know, again, beautiful on a tablescape. You know, imagine having friends or family over for dinner or for lunch, and it would just be such a sort of, oh, is that a real lemon kind of thing? You know, it's just a really nice feature to have on your table. Also works beautifully mixed with other plants again, you know, whether it's sort of the topiary or the lavender or some herbs, just all works so nice together. So I was saying about transitioning indoors. Okay, so you're keeping it outdoors obviously for the summer. Then as it starts to get cooler, you'll need to bring it in. So lemon trees don't love central heating. So don't plonk them by a radiator by any means. Keep them away. Keep them somewhere, ideally a conservatory if you have one, or a porch, but keep them somewhere if you don't. I keep mine usually in my kitchen, and spritz the hell out of them. So that's how I keep them alive. That's how I've kept them going in the past. Don't get me wrong, they haven't grown massively when I've kept them indoors, because I don't personally have a conservatory or a greenhouse, but I want to keep them indoors anyway. So I just make sure I really mist them with one of those spritz guns, keep them really well watered, away from central heating kind of sources, away from a radiator. Don't pop them on the floor with underfloor heating like I did with my olive. yeah, just kind of be mindful, look after it if you can, just keep an eye on it, just see, you'll see, it will tell you what it needs. If it's looking really sad, it might be worth a feed, tomato feed. Tomato feed is really good for basically any fruiting plant or vegetable plant. So give it a nice feed and yeah, just keep an eye on it. But I really think that you'll get so much enjoyment from it, and it's really so rewarding seeing it turn from green to yellow, and as the flowers develop and then the little lemons start to grow, it's really lovely. It's a really kind of quite a magical plant, so I really hope you like it. So now we have the last and the biggest of our August DIY pockets, which is the lemon tree. So we did the gorgeous little lemons for July, and they were so well received and you all loved them, and I've had messages from people asking for the tall lemons that we did in Lydia Midden's home, and so yeah, we've decided to go for it this month. We've got some gorgeous big rose terracotta pots, so these are a 25cm pot, again with the gorgeous lovely scallop kind of edging to it and matching saucer. So with the lemon, you can have this outside now, so when it arrives this coming week, it can go outside, lots of sunlight. Watering is probably similar to an olive actually, so you water once and you drench it, and then you leave it alone for a week maybe. So see how you go. If you find that the leaves are kind of dropping or sort of becoming a bit limp, then I would water it. It's obviously thirsty, but yeah, similar to the olive, you don't want to water it little and often. You water it in one big go, leave it alone, let it dry out, and then water again. With the lemons that we have, we do feed them with a specific citrus and Mediterranean plant feed, which you can get on Amazon really easily. So we feed them once a week, just with a watering can. And also, sort of similar to the olive, you can do the trick whereby you scrape off the top sort of centimetre of soil and then add the compost that is in your kit. You don't need a lot of compost for your potting, because the plant pot is a good size for the plant pot, but there will be some in there for you, so you can add that to the top if you'd like to, because that way they get some new nutrients, some fresh nutrients, and then if you're happy to give them a feed, then that's even better. In terms of lemon trees, when it becomes cooler, you can then bring them indoors. They are much like the ferns, they are lovers of humidity, so you will definitely need to get yourself a spritz gun for a lemon. Not an expensive one, just, you know, again, like I said, I use like a florist one, or you can get you know, you can get them again off Amazon, really easy to get hold of. I would say give them as regular a spritz as you can, so daily ideally. Keep them in a humid place, such as a kitchen or a bathroom. Actually, they look really gorgeous in a bathroom. We've definitely had success with lemons indoors, as in indoors in a home rather than in a greenhouse. So yeah, there's no reason why they can't survive indoors. So yeah, as long as they've got a good amount of humidity from the spritzing, water once a week. As it gets cooler and the plant starts to rest, excuse me, it doesn't need watering as much, so you can leave it a bit longer and just go by how the plant is looking, whether the leaves are kind of look happy or not. So just go by that. But this lemon in particular that's just come in has got some lovely little tiny shoots. The ends are all cut because they've been pruned, but you can see lots of little growths there. The lemons are obviously at the moment, excuse me, at the moment green, but they will turn yellow with lots of sunlight. Not necessarily this season, they might stay green this season and then we might get yellow lemons next year. So again, it's a plant that's not just for this season, it's one for, you know, something you can take care of for a long time and really enjoy for a long time. So let's pot up. So in your kit, as always, you'll have your gravel. So a lemon needs lots of drainage. So pop your gravel in and then take your lemon out of its pot. Easier said than done. Give your lemon a drink when it arrives. Oh my goodness, it's heavy. And then pot it up. Okay. Whew. Okay, that might be a little bit too tall. Right. My goodness. Take a little bit of the gravel out before you put too much in. Tease up the soil around the roots a little. Oh my gosh, that's a workout. Okay. Whew. There we go, it's in. Okay, and then you need to add in the compost. Okay, with your kit, so just around the edges. And you shouldn't need a lot because the pot is a good size for the plant. Make sure there's no air pockets. And then with, as the same we did with the olive, you know, you can scrape some of the top soil away and either get rid of it, or you could probably push it down the sides a bit more, and then sort of almost top dress with the new compost, just a little bit, just a sprinkling, because that then gives the plant new nutrients from the new compost. Okay, and then in your pot you'll have your moss. You'll have your bun moss and your sphagnum moss, which is this one here. Just finishes everything off beautifully. Again, you don't necessarily have to use the moss, because I don't know if it's just a Mediterranean plant thing, but I do like how the soil looks against the sort of the terracotta and the green. But let's see what it looks like with the moss anyway. And as I've said with all the other pot kits, make sure you water the plant, the soil of the plant, and not the moss on top, so that the water goes straight to the roots rather than sort of almost keeping this alive. You want to be making sure that the soil is well watered. So going back to watering, you want to water once a week, and then give it a good drench, and then once the top sort of centimetre or two feels dry, that's when you need to water again. So you're probably looking at, yeah, once a week watering, a really good drench. Any other things for for lemon? Definitely invest in the feed. I think you'll really benefit from that. So just like the citrus feed, go off what the instructions say on the pack. And that's about it really. Just a nice spritz daily if possible, will keep it really happy. And I hope you enjoy it. They really are such a special plant. And when those lovely lemons come to fruition and start turning yellow, it just brings so much joy. So there you go, the tall lemon tree kit. So that takes us to the end of our September DIY pot kit tutorial. Hopefully there's something for everyone, whether you love houseplants or want something for the garden that's going to stay beautiful throughout the colder months. hopefully you found your kit. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in October.